He's right there.
This episode of the Bucktails podcast is brought to you by Pistol Creek and Trip Sporting Goods. Pick his head up. Yeah! Look at that. Woo! Good deer, babe. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Bucktails podcast. This is your host, Eli Self. I'm coming to you today for a little wintertime update and also a fishing tournament recap. So this is the first one of those that I've done, but I did want to bring that to you guys, kind of start doing that after my tournaments. I'll go into more of kind of what I do, what kind of tournaments I fish, the club I'm in, the boat I run, technology I use, all that kind of stuff. So I do want to give a shout out to my fishing sponsors this year. So this is something that was brand new for me last year, but it allows me to do some neat things for you guys in the podcast. It helps fund the tournament season. It's a lot of support from local businesses. So without further ado, my sponsors for 2023 are Pistol Creek Outdoors, Trammell Tire Pros, Appalachian Home Loans, Country Financial with Ethan Crow, Marshall's Auto Parts, Mountain Man Salon, Dahlonega Chiropractic Life Center, Smoking Fly Cigars, Gold Rush Spirits, and the disco station is the Marathon up here off of 19. Dahlonega Electric, Self and Self, Trip Sporting Goods, Decked Out John Boats, and Anderson Feed and Hardware. So a lot of really great local businesses that I use personally. And I can't thank these guys enough for their assistance this year for the fishing season, and just supporting the podcast whole 9 yards. So I do have a jersey that with their logos on it, and I'll post a picture of their jersey. It came in a few days ago. I was actually a couple days late on getting it in. I ordered it middle of December, and usually it takes about 4 weeks to get in. And our first tournament was this past weekend, January 28th. So it came in just a couple days too late, unfortunately. So, but I'll be posting up pictures of that and making some posts, thanking the sponsors again on social media. So back to the wintertime update. So we are very busy here in in the Eli Self household. My wife is student teaching right now. I teach full time. We have a 2-year-old and a 7-month-old, and they keep us on our toes. They're great kids. We're super blessed, super thankful for that. But man, it's two kids is busy, and a wife in school is busy. I got my specialist degree back last summer, so we've been this year has been wild. But it's been a while since I've come back to you with an episode, so I'm glad to get back in it and bring you guys a little bit of a twist. Some fishing of my own, but that's kind of the gist for today's episode. So back to in the deer season, my wife did kill a pretty decent little 6-pointer up here near the house. So we got some fresh deer meat in the freezer. So thankful for that. And then lately, I've just been getting ready for the tournament fishing season. Uh, I had a rod get broken. It was one of my crankbait rods, so I had to get that in. We've been putting new batteries in the boat, kind of rearranging some things. A big thing for this year, and again, thanks to all the sponsors and all the help that I've got here. But I just have got the Garmin Panoptix Live Scope. It's not Live Scope Plus, but it's the LVS 32 transducer. So I jumped into the forward facing sonar game, and we'll talk about that a little bit when I get into the tournament recap. But basically, been rigging up the boat, getting everything ready to go there for the tournament season. And as far as tournaments go, I run an electric only tournament club called Dahlonega Jon Boat Anglers. I've been running this thing since 2011. I started it. Man, it was probably 4 or 5 boats all in. I was in a 12-foot John boat. A couple of my cousins were in 14 or 12 or 14-foot John boats, and we didn't have live wells. So the very first few DJBA tournaments, um, we had to take videos of ourselves weighing the fish on a digital scale, and that's how we did our first few tournaments. And then from there, we upgraded boats, got a little bit better, a little bit more involved with it, and opened it up to be mainly tournaments just on Yahula. up here in Dahlonega. And back in the day, man, we multiple 15 plus pound bags, 20 plus pound bags. I mean, we had some incredible days back there, back probably early 2000s, '08, 2010, 2012, in that range. And, up until, I mean, it's still great fishing, but it's just not what it used to be. But, we got better boats, got live wells. We opened it up to the public, and then we had a bunch of open tournaments. And then now we've grown to, we have 21 boats this year. We normally cap it off at 20, but we're at 21 boats for the 2023 season. Um, I mean, a lot of really, really high end boats. Some are custom deals where they've got them decked out with aluminum, like they're aluminum boats, and they've got it decked out completely aluminum, no wood at all. They've got the, Hydra deck or Sea deck, Hydra turf type stuff. Um, Instead of carpet, they've got, a lot of people have the live scope or the forward facing sonar. Electric outboards are everywhere. It's very, very humbling to see the club grow like it has. And that's some people may wonder why I fish electric only and why I don't do more of the big boat stuff, or why I didn't go ahead and buy, a bigger bass boat. And of course, not of course, but I feel like a dream of a Dahlonega kid growing up, being this close to Lake Lanier, is to get a nice bass boat, fish Lanier a bunch, get really good at it, join a club on Lanier, or just fish tournaments, as much as you can out there. And that's kind of, being this close to literally a world class spotted bass fishery. That's kind of what you would think would be your goal. And it was my goal for a long time. And then the electric only scene has exploded. There's a lot more technology there as far as batteries and motors go. I'm definitely not against a gas or anything like that. I still fish with buddies that have gas motors, but it's just this scene has grown like crazy, and we have a great group of guys with DJBA, and I love it. And there's really a lot more different lakes within an hour of the house that I can go to and fish. I can fish Lanier still. We fish Lanier a few times a year. At this point, we fish it 3 times a year with the club, in the wintertime before it gets too crazy with, boat traffic and cabin cruisers and all that kinda stuff. But, so that's kinda why I'm in electric only. When I started the club, I was a broke college kid, and now I'm a broke 30-year-old, so here we are. But no, I love it. It's a growing community. We have a state championship we're involved with. There used to be a national championship it was a point system that we were involved with. So it's a big, big thing here in Georgia, especially. There are some clubs up in, I think it's Virginia, that are really big. Like a lot of around like Baltimore, some of the cities, electric only is pretty big up there too. But yeah, so that's why I am where I am as far as electric only stuff goes. But so let's jump right in past that to my boat setup. So right now I'm fishing on in a late 80s, is 88 or 89 Hydra Sport bass boat. It's a fiberglass boat. It's 19 feet long. Um, my typical setup, I've got three 24-volt motors on it. So two on the back, one foot controlled on the front. Um, I don't run lithium batteries. The batteries I have right now are actually cell tower, or it's like a power supply backup battery that I buy used, and they still have, it's like a guarantee of a 90% life left or something. So they're, hardly used, and I get those at a pretty decent price. So those are the batteries I use right now, and some of them are either 100 amp hours or 133 amp hours. So lots of capacity there in my boat with me, tournament load, a partner, cooler and things like that. It'll run a touch over 5 miles an hour, which I know is not blowing you away by any means. But this electric only stuff is about like NASCAR. People move batteries around, me included, trying to find out where the best place to put batteries are to get a little bit more speed. And for whatever reason, in these boats, weight forward is important. So it's, you want to put, there's a lot of room back there where the gas tank used to be to put batteries, but it's really good if you can get weight forward. You go a little bit faster. I think it's because of the shape of the front of the boat. It's a little bit more aerodynamic or hydrodynamic, however you want to put that. But weight forward usually gets you a little bit more speed. But like I said, running a little bit over 5 miles an hour. and we've fished a few tournaments where our range, I've went back and tracked it out where it's 5.5, 6 miles is about what we've done and still had battery life left at the end of the day. And you really don't lose a whole lot of speed by the end of the day. Like we'll still be running 4.25, 4.5. Like this past Saturday, we probably ran. I tracked it out today, and it was like 5.8 miles, I think. And by the end of the day, we were still running 4.5 miles an hour. So, and I know that's not impressive to some of you guys that run 20, 30 miles in a bass boat, but as far as electric only goes, that's kind of how it works. As far as electronics goes, I've got a Garmin 93 SV. So it's got the side imaging and down imaging sonar, 2D sonar, and I've just recently got the live scope. It's the forward facing sonar. It has taken the fishing industry by storm for sure. It's so typically what you're looking at on the graph is all historical data. It's all what's already happened. And now with this forward facing sonar, you can see something that's 40, 50, 100 feet in front of you, and it's live. So you can throw a lure at a fish and you can watch the fish chase it live. So it's almost like looking at an ultrasound or something underneath the water is the best way I can put it. But you can angle it with your trolling motor, left, right, middle, however you want to do it, and you can find fish before you're on top of them. So it's revolutionized fishing. I think it's definitely not an end all be all. It's not like you get it and you're definitely going to win every single tournament now. But man, it's definitely changed the way I look at fish. And if anything, you can learn what the fish do more. You know that you're fishing water that has fish in it, or if you pan around and you don't see anything, you're in a dead spot. So it's a lot less wasted time, I guess you could put it that way. So that's kind of my boat setup. So before I get into my tournament story from Saturday, I want to bring up tournament fiascos at Sardis boat ramp. So this is on Lake Lanier. And the last 3 years in a row, I have had nothing but fiascos at that place. Um, hard to get a limit. I think I may have had 4 fish at every single tournament I fished at Sardis. We've had pretty decent weights, 10 plus pounds usually, but just on 4. So 2 years ago, I was fishing with my cousin, and we got into a little bit of fishing line. It was braided line, and it locked down the prop on my front trolling motor, and I didn't notice it, so I kept on pressing the button, and it was starting to get hot. Like the plug for the trolling motor was starting to smoke, so I was kind of freaked out. So we pulled it up, figured out what it was, and when we took the prop off, the pin fell in the water. It was a motor guide, and I forgot how loose they were, so didn't think to make sure we had our hand underneath it or trying to catch it as it fell, and it fell right in the water. So we had to fashion ourselves our own little pin for the trolling motor prop out of an old bolt. An old bolt. We took the bolt and cut it and put it through there and made it back. And at that time when it came out, we were probably a mile and a half from the ramp on an electric only boat. Of course, we had the back motors still to run, but the front one, if you don't have that, fishing is very difficult. I mean, you can still do it, but it's just not going to be a great day or your best bet. So we got that fixed, but we ended up losing, probably pushing an hour trying to get that squared away. And we had finally found a few fish and we were having to stop to fix something. Okay. So last year, me and my partner now, Tyler, I was fishing on a new to me boat. So this the Hydra Sport that I have now. I'd had it for a couple weeks. We had taken it out and tested it out. It ran good, wasn't sinking, wasn't taking on water, live well worked, all that kind of stuff. Well, we get out there on tournament day, we cut the live well on, and probably an hour into the day, we caught a pretty decent fish first thing that morning. And then Tyler looks down and is like, we're taking on water. So I'm like, are you kidding me? So we pick up the back hatch on the boat, and it's like battery soup back there. I mean, there's water filling up the whole of the boat. So we hightail it back to the ramp, get the boat on the trailer, of course, cut the live well off, just trying to, keep any weight out of the boat we could. And come to find out that the drain for the live well was going into the back compartment of the boat. And the overflow, usually you can leave a live well running and it'll overflow out the boat through a hose. Well, that hose was also the overflow. It was overflowing into the back of the boat. So the live well was literally just filling the boat full of water while we ran it for an hour. So that took us a little bit of time to track down and let the boat drain. We had the bilge pump running. This is while we're on dry land. We had a fish in the live well, so we had to keep a little bit of water in there. So that was, I don't know, we lost a couple hours at least of fishing trying to get that all squared away. Then this year, I had either a stomach virus or food poisoning. So I had to get off the boat once to go find a tree, if you know what I mean. And then I had stomach cramps the rest of the day, and I, couldn't even hardly talk to Tyler. I'm sure I was very boring. I apologize, Tyler. Sorry about that. But yeah, I couldn't even focus. I was just trying so hard just to like not mess on myself, and it was quite a day. So yeah, so that was the fiasco about Saturday. So back into the actual tournament recap now that we've gotten past the fiasco and kind of what electric only fishing is and how my boat is set up. Um, so it's wintertime on Lanier. We had been pre-fishing a little bit the past few weeks before leading up to the event, and we had found most of our bites had came deeper, like 25, 30 plus feet of water. And if we could find any brush or any kind of little trash on the bottom, there were usually fish around it. And the other little bit of bites we'd had were just we'd go out and pan around and look for bait. And if we could find suspended fish around that bait, we could maybe get a follow, maybe get a bite. So that's kind of how it was leading up to the event. I hadn't found any great fish. I did not think I had the winning fish at all. Leading up to the event, I was thinking based on what I'd seen, unless we ran into a good spot or two, I was thinking 11, 12, 13 pounds was probably going to be, the fish I'd found. And I was hoping for better, but that was kind of my thinking leading up to it based on what I'd found. So we started out, stayed pretty close to the ramp, and there were fish everywhere. They were moving, they were chasing bait, they were chasing our lures. I was throwing an Alabama rig some early. Tyler was throwing a jerk bait, and I caught one fairly early on an Alabama rig, and it was he actually bit it on the fall. So an Alabama rig, if you don't know, looks like a chandelier. It's an umbrella rig, has 5 baits on it. But I've really enjoyed throwing that with the forward facing sonar. Really getting used to it, kind of learning it here lately. But caught one. It was probably about a 3 pounder, decent fish, spotted bass. So got that in the boat. We fished around there for a little while longer, and we were probably there until pushing 10 o'clock. We blasted off at 7, so we spent about pushing 3 hours in there. And in the middle of this is when I had to get off the boat to use the restroom. But so we were chasing fish around. We were on fish, and this is something with electric only stuff. It's you can't just take off and run 10 miles down the lake and get a change of scenery and see if the fish are more active. I mean, we could run a mile, but it's going to take us, quite a few minutes to get down there. So that's kind of the deal is, you either stay put and hope that they start biting after a while if you're on fish, or you say, okay, we got to scrap it. We're going to go to a different area. And we finally decided, and I think kind of the straw that broke the camel's back is Tyler had a fish follow his jerk bait in from like 60 feet all the way to the boat and never did bite it. And he was changing up the cadence, speeding up, slowing down, would not bite it. And he was watching it we were watching it on the sonar. And had a few fish do that with the Alabama rig as well. So we're finally like, all right, we gotta go. And I had a spot where I'd taken me and my wife went fishing, pre-fishing, and she whacked them in this one ditch, and they were all cookie cutter about 2 pound fish. Definitely not the winning fish, but I was like, okay, let's go see if we can get bit. So we go down there to that those ditches, and it's probably mile and a half run. So it took us right at 20, 22, 23 minutes to get down there. Because in this game, I've got to time it. So whenever we left, I looked at my watch. We got down there. I'm like, all right, it's about 20, 25-minute run. So that way, whenever it's time to go to weigh in, I've got to allow for this much time based on speed. So we got down there. No one's in these ditches, which is great. So we have the whole place to ourselves. We switched it up a little bit. There are some blowdowns and some rocks, so we flipped up shallow with a jerk bait. I was throwing a crankbait. We flipped a jig and some worms around these blowdowns and stumps. Nothing, no bites at all. Didn't mark anything out there. Got back to the back of this ditch, and it's pretty deep. It was probably 30, 35 feet near the back of it. And Tyler catches one on a blade bait. So then something kind of clicked there for us. That a blade bait, you rip it up and it kind of vibrates pretty quick. So we're thinking, okay, maybe it's the reaction bite. The fish are there, we're seeing fish, but that quick little jolt, maybe it gets them to react. Instead of going, we were trying to go more to the finesse side of things, like really small swim baits, like a 2.8-inch Kitech or a 3.3-inch Kitech. So, all right, so I pick up a jigging spoon. Tyler keeps throwing his blade bait, and we're kind of mixing stuff up back and forth, but we're trying to get a reaction bite at this point on these fish out in these ditches. So we're still fishing 25, 30 feet of water, um, staying on fish. So we go around to the other side here. So now at this point, we've got two keepers in the boat. We go around this point to the other ditch that's back here in the same area. And I see some brush in between like three docks, like right in the middle of them. And I didn't really see any fish on it, but I saw some movement. I'm still pretty new to the forward facing sonar game, so I couldn't tell if I was just seeing the brush or bait or fish or crappie. I didn't know what it was. I just knew there was something up there that looked, like it should hold something. So started fan casting a jig and spoon around, and I hook into one, and taking off like crazy, strip and drag. So I think I have a striper on. And come to find out is I had foul hooked probably a 3.25, 3.5 pound spotted bass. And sometimes that happens whenever you're ripping a jig and spoon up, they swipe and miss it, and it just catches him in the side. So he took off. We got him in the boat finally, and good keeper. That's the quality that we needed. We needed 5 of those because that would have been, you have 5 3.5 pounders, you're at 17.5 pounds, and that would have been a solid day. So now we're at 3 fish. We've got uh a 3.5, a 3, and then the other one that Tyler caught was probably under 2, pound and a half, pound 3/4, pushing 2 pounds. And then we keep going around through there, and then Tyler catches another one on the blade bait out of the same brush I caught the 3.5 pounder out of, and that was the last keeper we caught. We had a few more bites on jig and worm and some things like that, but the fish that Tyler just caught, that fourth keeper, was another pushing 3 pounder. So we've got 3 threes, ishes, maybe a little bit north on the one, and then a dink. And we ended up having 10.04, 10.07, just over 10 pounds on 4. And it was good enough for a fourth place finish. So, proud, or fifth place finish, I'm sorry. Fifth place finish, and proud of that for our first tournament. Of course, we were ticked because we couldn't get number 5, but it ended up we were like 4.5 pounds out of fourth place. So, unless we would have caught 2 solid keepers, 3 pluses, then we would have been probably still in fifth place. So I know that's kind of a reach for making us feel better for getting to fifth place, but uh, that was just kind of our day. And for a lot of people, it was slow. There were only 6 limits caught out of 20 boats that were there on Saturday, and that's not very typical for Lake Lanier and my club. Normally, we have well over half the boats will have a limit usually, and it was just a slow weekend. Even there was a high school tournament on Sunday at Laurel Park, and my cousins ended up finishing 4th in that, and they had 17 plus pounds, but they had 4 keepers at 230, and they ended up doubling up at the very end. So it's they only had 5, 6 bites on the day. Me and Tyler probably had 5 or 6 bites total on the day with 4 keepers getting in the boat, and it's a tough day. A lot of the really good anglers in our club didn't have a limit, or they may have had a very small limit, or some guys that we were kind of watching out for had 2 keepers or 3 keepers. So very odd day, and I'm no fish biologist by any means or an expert, so take all this with a grain of salt that you're hearing. This is just my experience. But according to the fishing reports and what you heard throughout early and middle January, I feel like those fish, full on gorged themselves, and they got their fill. They're kind of hunkering down. Weather's been very rainy, a little bit warmer than normal. It was cold Saturday morning. Don't get me wrong; it was below freezing there for a little while, but it's just we haven't had that good, just straight cold weather for a solid week. It'll be cold for a day, then it warms up. Then it'll be cold for a day, then it warms up. So something with the weather has them a little bit off, or at least they were in mid lake where we were. Definitely not. We definitely aren't down south on the lake, but that's kind of the gist of that tournament day for us. Water conditions. Water was in the upper 40s, pushing 50. I think it's approaching 50 now, and it's February 2nd when I'm recording this. Um, Water was a little bit stained at Sardis. We went down a mile and a half to the other spot, and it was a little bit cleaner. And we caught 3 fish within a couple hours and had a couple more bites. So I think definitely the water clarity in the Sardis Creek probably affected the amount of 5 fish limits that were caught, and I think that's kind of what hurt a lot of the guys. But as far as the weigh in goes, I mean, we had the winning bag was 19 pounds, anchored by almost a 6-pound largemouth. Second place was 17 pounds. They had a couple of big largemouth. I think their big fish was like 460 something, almost a 5-pounder. I mean, the top 2 guys definitely had the largemouth help, and that's you know usually typical for northern end of the Lanier. But the last few years at Sardis, it's been dominated by all spotted bass. Usually there is 15, 16 pounds for an electric only tournament out of Sardis is what'll win it. But if we had, 2 bags over 17, and then third place was right at 16 pounds, fourth place was 14 and a half. Then me and Tyler had 10 pounds for fifth. And then it was stair stacked pretty close. There were 2 or 3 teams that had in between 9 and 10 pounds. So it kind of bunched up there at that 9, 10 pound range. And some of those guys had 4 fish. I think 1 or 2 had a 5 fish limit for under 10 pounds. But that was the tournament. So and so that's kind of that was how the day went, how our kind of our thought process. And again, on for electric only stuff, you've got to either decide if you're on fish, you got to sit here and wait them out, because one, if you move, someone might hop in there and be on that spot whenever you want to come back in an hour. You got to stay there, wait them out, or you've got to make a move and run, change tactics. And I think it paid off for me and Tyler on Saturday to take off and leave. We'll never know what would have happened if we would have stayed the whole time. But just the way the fish were acting, I feel like it wouldn't have been good for us. Could have, but that's one of the things in fishing. Sometimes you have to flip a coin and hope you made the right decision. So top 5 finish to end the year, or to begin the year, sorry. And man, looking forward to the rest of it. In 2 weeks, which I guess 9 days from now, on the 11th, we'll be out of Toto Creek, and it'll be an interesting tournament because with all the rain is pouring down rain outside right now. So with all this rain, I'm sure it's going to be good and muddy. But hopefully we can run south and find some clean water there and see what happens. So thank you guys so much for listening. Some upcoming episodes to look forward to. I'm going to have my cousin Dylan and his wife Megan on to talk about what they've killed this year. Dylan killed a deer in Illinois, and Megan killed a great buck here up in North Georgia with a crossbow. It was a full velvet 8-pointer. Then I'm also going to try to get some North Hall students on, Miller Wilson and Dylan Hollifield. They were in together on a great public land kill up here. I think Lumpkin Union, somewhere up in National Forest, but public land. They killed. It was a great buck. I'm not sure what the score was, but it was a big 8-pointer. So those are the 2 more upcoming episodes that I'll be doing for you guys. So thank y'all for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Bucktails Podcast.